Serious, people who stopped talking to a very close friend. What was the reason? Money. Made the mistake of lending $10k plus to my best friend to help keep his business afloat. Tried to stick by the old saw. Don't lend, just give. If you get it back, great. Time passed. Fortunes changed. I needed that money back. He was in a very solid position to return the favor, and didn't. My friend would always get so angry about the pettiest things. Any perceived wrongdoing would make him avoid all contact with you. I saw that he did this with everyone, including other friends, parents, grandparents, girlfriends, and just about anyone else he met. Well, one day he got mad at me about something. I can't even remember what it was. He decided to cut contact, and when he tried to re-establish it months later, I didn't speak to him at all. I was almost always the butt of the joke. At one point I had enough and asked my friend to stop. He didn't. This went on for a while, and eventually I just stopped talking to him. I told one of my closest guy friends that his girlfriend was cheating on him. I sat him down and told him. He went to confront her. She found me later that night out at the bars and accused me of trying to steal him away from her, which was stupid because I was out with my girlfriend at the time. He hasn't spoken to me since that night. It's been 3 years and they live together now. We used to hang out every day, go fishing, do yoga, and play video games. I miss him. Just shared this in another thread, but my best friend and my boyfriend drunkenly fricked in a hot tub and I walked in on them. He was blacked out. When I saw them, he looked me straight in the eyes and didn't even process. She saw me and the look of shame on her face before she continued fricking him told me all I needed to know. For months and months I dreamed about her, not him, at least weekly. In my dreams I would be walking around somewhere and run into her and hug her before remembering what she did. And then she would evaporate and I would be left with this deep seething dream rage. I completely cut her out of my life. Full stop. But then, through a series of college housing office fuck-ups and bureaucracy, I was forced to live with her and 2 other girls. I tried not to be petty or to make things uncomfortable for my other roommates, so I would occasionally make cold but civil small talk. After we moved out of that immensely awkward living situation, I never spoke to her again. I have no idea what she's doing now. We were best friends. Then one day it ended. One of my closest friends started bragging one day about the company he worked for. Their business model: 1. Buy rights to some gay pee. 2. Release it on BitTorrent. 3. Track who torrents it. 4. Send them letters threatening to sue them publicly unless they settle privately for a few $1,000s. 5. Collect money from anyone who pays, then cancel other lawsuits. At the time, it sounded questionably legal at best. Since then it's blown up in their faces and they're probably going to flee the country or end up in jail. Either way, finding out that he thought this was a legitimate business model told me that it was time to let that friendship go. For the curious, the company name was Prindar and the whole debacle is fairly well documented online. Holy crap. I didn't even finish reading your post and immediately thought of Prindar. I loved reading about their courtroom shenanigans on Ars Technica. Because the words, "Now that I'm rich I can do what I want, that's why I cheated on my wife," actually came out of his mouth. We both became successful at the same time and it changed him in an awful way. He became entitled, greedy, borderline sociopathic, and it was disgusting. I hate to say it, but he was probably already those things before he became rich. I still don't know. We were best friends for over 10 years with on-off periods when we didn't talk as much, of course, and for the last months of it had been talking literally from the moment we woke up until we went to sleep. She'd tell me everything. I'd tell her everything. We'd talk up until 7 a.m. some weekends without ever realizing. Then one day she just said she grew tired of me and needed some time away. That the reason we were friends for so long is that we take time off each other. One week she says she loves me and I'm one of the most important people in her life. The other she's sick of me. It was a couple months ago and still hurts. She was the one person that got me. It's been a lonely couple of months. Whenever we hung out, it was always this ridiculous game of her trying to find time to hang out. I would tell her in advance to hang out. She'd reschedule last second. Every time we hung out it was this stupid situation to get her to do anything outside of her house. We lived not even 1 block away from each other and she made the friendship feel like we were traveling miles to hang out. I gave up one day after she blew me off to reschedule on my birthday and days after. So I messaged her saying I don't think we should hang out anymore. Blah blah. And we didn't. I'm not the only one that had this issue with her. I tried to make it work but she made it difficult. Don't really miss her, to be honest, since we rarely hung out towards the end. I had a 25-year friendship with a girl like this, and bonus, she was passive aggressive about everything and perpetually late with crappy excuses. Had to cut her loose. I realized I was the only one reaching out with plans to see certain people. I stopped making all the plans and they very quickly disappeared. Got new better friends shortly after. I feel your pain. Online hug. She was a very good friend for 15 years, but she was such an Eeyore. 15 years of listening to how terrible her life was took its toll. She always insinuated that I couldn't understand her struggles because she was a single mother. Newsflash, I was raised by a single mother. Since her life was so hard she always needed favors help that she never returned. I do miss her, but I don't miss the emotional exhaustion. Perfect term. I definitely had an Eeyore in my life. You did better than me though. I stuck around long enough to experience her try to make me as miserable as she was. After college, I went home to find my family a wreck. Mum was sick, dad was out of work, brother was self-destructing, bills hadn't been paid in months. I waded in hip deep and began shoveling crap. Burnt through my savings, maxed out my credit cards, took whatever work I could find. My friends went on to PhDs, marriage, careers. When I saw one of them in a short video on the Discovery Channel website, talking about a fossil he had just found, I lost it. Broke into tears. There they were living my dreams. I didn't want to become resentful of them, to hate them for their success. And anyway, who wants a friend with nothing but misery to share? You're getting married? That's great. My mom just lost her leg to gangrene. So, I stopped reaching out. I faded out of their lives. Most of them were busy and had moved cross country, so it was an easy break. 1. My roommate in college for several years kept going out of his way to stay in touch. I ended up asking him to stop worrying about me, told him things were bad for me and my family and that wasn't something I wanted to share. Holy crap, that must have been tough as heck. You're a hero, though, so you've got that going for you, which is nice. All the best to you, your family, and your dreams. She always leaned on me for support, but never did anything to improve her life. When I shared things with her, she criticized me constantly and wanted me to pull back from taking risks. It just got frustrating dealing with somebody who wasn't growing at all and wanted me to stay the same. We just lost common interests, and that's the hardest part. You don't hate each other, you actually kind of want to like each other, but you have nothing much in common anymore. I have a friend and we mutually got bored of each other, not really sure why. I realized that our friendship was built on the fact that we were bookish people in a school full of athletically inclined folks and had very little actually in common. We would hang out in the library every day and I even started going to her family's church. We started drifting apart in high school after she got really gothish and turned into some weird mashup of a Legbird and a Tumblr king before Tumblr was even cool. The cheerleaders were automatically horror bags. Never mind that most of them were actually the sweetest girls I'd ever met. The boys in our class were all dumb and worthless, because apparently enjoying football and not grasping chemistry the first time around makes you less than human. I think the final straw came during our senior year, when she shouted S at the dance team when they were doing some dance. It was during winter festival and the entire school was there. It wasn't edgy, it was just freaking embarrassing. I got up and moved to the other side of the auditorium and haven't spoken to her since. He went kinda crazy. We were very close quite fast, both fans of various geeky pursuits and drinking beer and having a good laugh. He was a clever, witty guy, so we had fun setting the world to rights, playing Warhammer and video games. But then he had an affair with someone he worked with. He was married and started becoming very difficult, slightly manic. He left his wife, but his big on the side ended up marrying her fiancé as planned, though they still saw each other. I was so sick to the death of it all. being so morally depressing and murky. Then he asked out my ex-girlfriend, bearing in mind he'd been a great help during my breakup. That was that, and haven't spoken to him since. My former best friend stopped talking to me because of my depression. I became very clingy with him because I was isolated for a few months due to moving temporarily. I was also super unstable and kept hurting myself, had panic attacks every day, experienced delusional thinking where I thought everyone thing was trying to hurt me, etc. He asked for some space, but I couldn't give it to him in my extremely irrational mindset. He finally stopped talking to me for good after I attempted suicide and was hospitalized. Just last night, I dreamed he called me and wanted to be friends again after all this time. About a year now. I still miss him. He just stopped talking to me. It started gradually. We would talk less and less as months would pass. One day, as I was leaving his house, I playfully quipped to him how I would see him in a couple months. As I walked up the driveway, this thought creeped into my head. I wonder if this is the last time I will see him. I just had that feeling. Now he won't even answer my texts or anything. Haven't seen him in 8 months. I miss him every day. She and I were born 2 days apart. We went to elementary school, junior high, senior high and later to university together. She was my best friend. Then she fell ill with anorexia. It started somewhere in the end of junior high. Me and a few friends went to talk to the PE teacher about it. It's being taken care of. Her mother's been notified. Just be supportive, they told us. It got worse during senior high. She kept losing more and more weight. When we graduated, her legs were almost as thin as my arms. After she moved out of her mother's place and started renting her own apartment, it got even worse. She was basically a walking skeleton. I tried to be there for her, but the anorexia just made her the most vile person. People who have never dealt with anybody who has a serious ED don't understand how much it changes one's personality. Food, counting calories, restricting them and exercising became everything to her. The few times she wanted to go to a restaurant became trips that lasted for hours. She tried to change absolutely everything about her meals. Most of the time the only thing she would agree to do with me was jogging at a snail's pace for hours and hours. Wanna go to a pub and have a drink? Nope. A few days trip somewhere? Can't go. Might have to eat something she wasn't expecting. Basically she was planning every day ahead, what she would eat at some exact time, how exactly long jog she would do that day, yada yada. I tried for 5 years, then I gave up. It was too emotionally draining. She didn't give a crap about me anymore. She just used me to help her pretend that she was still okay and had friends. Haven't talked to her in almost 6 years now. I moved to another city soon after we fell apart. From what FB tells me, it seems like she's doing a little better now, but I don't know if I want to resume our friendship. I feel like I've moved on. Time just passed us by really. We were best friends up until he moved. Around high school, neither of us had a car, so we only got to visit him once during those years. After high school, I tried hanging out with him like old times, and we did joke around like we used to, but I noticed for him it just wasn't the same. I told him if he wants to hang out, to just let me know. It's been a couple years since that convo. I still consider him a close friend, because of all the laughs we had. It's just that I have a different connection with him now. Moving makes it hard to stay close to people. I would know. High school changes everyone too. Sometimes you're only friends with people because you see them 5 times a week. I haven't talked to anyone from high school since the day I graduated. That sucks though, man. His relationship with drugs was unhealthy and none of my advice or effort seemed to help. I had to cut him off to send a message and save myself. I had to do this twice. It was always me initiating the plans to hang out. I did a test. I wouldn't call him to hang out for 30 days. He called me once. The first thing he tells me is that everyone else is busy. So, in 30 days he called once and I was the last resort. Me and my friend were basically lonely together and both had pretty bleak outlooks on life. We made each other more depressed and looked down on others together. I realized I didn't wanna be like that, basically an butthole, so I moved out of town and started a new life. Stopped talking to this guy while I had my new life. I got happier and started finding my self-esteem, seeing girls, etc. When I went home next summer and met my old best friend again, he had not changed at all, and I noticed right away how toxic his presence was. I never hung out with him after that, but still talk now and then on Facebook. He's still fairly depressed, but I feel as if I've gotten far enough in my personal development where I am not that affected by it anymore. This happened to me too. When I went away on vacation, I realized life doesn't have to be that way. Distance gave me perspective. I never went back. I told my friends I was going back to college and going to make something of my life, and they were offended. I think they didn't understand the word ambition. Keep improving yourself. You're on the right track. We drifted apart. I've always been energetic, a bit unstable and always looking for new stuff to try. He wasn't like that. We got into the same class in what's equivalent to high school, where I met some very extroverted guys I became friends with, and their extroversy helped my social problems, so we grew close. Fast rewind 3 years to last year of high school. I got a severe depression and things just went south. I got a bit messed up in drinking and medicine abuse, and he just stayed the same. As time passed by, we saw each other less and less, and when I found out I was going to college 200 kilometers away from our hometown, things just went quiet. We spoke the other day though. He is good but pretty much same old same, while I have changed a lot. Best friend for years growing up. Hang out every single day and play in the woods, ride bikes, skateboarding, play videos games. We slowly started growing apart. We developed different interests over the years, and now I haven't talked to him in ages. I was friends with a guy for 15 years. Really close. Went to college in the same town across the state. When I graduated law school and opened my practice, he asked me if I could draft him a deed and record it, as he was buying the property next to him, in cash. He lived in a town a few hundred miles away, but I took care of it, sending priority mails back and forth. My expenses were almost $100, all told, but in the end I asked him for $350 just to cover the time and my costs. He stiffed me on the money and never spoke to me again, and it's been years now. A 15-year friendship over $350. What a shame. He found a woman. Totally changed all his opinions to match hers, and vegan, judging friends for disagreeing with her political and social opinions. I guess I wasn't attractive enough to be his friend. I'm slightly overweight. He was thinner than a rail and thought he was an Adonis. He came from a wealthy family as I did not, and was working whatever job I could so I could buy supplies and clothes for school, and he thought he was a far more superior intelligence and was an indigo child. I really don't know why I hung out with him. He was nice at first, introducing me to new things, but he started to show his true colors. He was 18-19, finishing high school and never worked a job in his life, and was always at odds with his parents who just wanted him to go out and do something. He ran away from home one night. My dad and I picked him up, and I ended up bringing him to work with me because my then boss needed yard work done around his property. My parents had a heart-to-heart with his parents, who were shocked I forced him to come to work with me, but told my mother, who then told me he wasn't going to be my friend for very long. And you know what? Sucker catfished me. He managed to create a ruse that was extremely elaborate and sophisticated on finding a boyfriend. I guess the goal was to make me jealous. Instead, he must have been upset that I was actually happy for him. After that, he blocked me via phone and any form of social media and never spoke to me again. Good riddance. She grew up into a person I didn't want to associate with anymore. We were best friends and neighbors, and from age 14-22 I spent almost every day hanging out with this girl. She ended up dating this butthole guy during that time, and eventually his mannerisms started to wear off on her. She was so funny and down to earth when we were younger, but as the years progressed, she became a vapid, shallow individual. It got to the point I couldn't have a conversation with her that didn't involve her telling me about the new thing she bought or what trip she was about to take. When I'd want to hang out, it had to involve spending crap tons of money. No more just having coffee and talking. There was no realness to our friendship anymore. It felt contrived. We both moved away and haven't talked to each other in a couple years. I lost all contact with my friends when I joined the military right out of high school. By the time I was getting out of the military they all were graduating college. I didn't make many friends in college because I was older and they wouldn't let me live in the dorms for some reason, so I had to get an apartment off campus. By the time I was graduating college all my high school friends were in careers and had kids. He stole from a mutual friend of ours right after saying he would never steal from us. The monetary value of what he stole wasn't that high, maybe $20 or so, but I can't be friends with someone who would blatantly lie to my face like that. We walked the road together for a few years. At some point the roads start to diverge, because you both want to see different horizons or try different things. At first you'll make sure the paths cross regularly. You call each other for dinner, for a beer, for hanging out. It's great like old times, talking about the stuff you're both doing, the new things you're seeing and experiencing. Still, conversations and meetups become more and more irregular. You're both busy. When you do meet up, you notice conversations slowly turn to talk about them olden days rather than about the present. Because by this time you've grown so much apart that those olden days are the one thing you both share. And then, poof, you're out of each other's lives. No hard feelings either way. I hope you're doing great, buddy. She proved herself to be toxic and never really a good friend to begin with. We'd met in HS, so we're in each other's lives for about 15 years. There are multiple reasons that led up to me finally cutting off the frenemy, but the biggest one is that she made a pass at my husband while we were dating. He never told me about it until years later and I was peeved because during the time it happened, she had succeeded in seducing one guy I had been casually seeing and made out with a different guy I had been talking to at a party. After each instance she would snivel and cry about feeling so pale compared to me, not wanting to trash a friendship. I gave her another chance as those other two guys weren't really anything special. I didn't confront her about the incident with my husband until after she had visited me in high. He actually didn't tell me about it until right before the visit, which was about 7 years after it happened. She had already booked her flight and he was going to be gone for work, so I decided to ride it out. She proved herself to be completely obnoxious during the trip, getting on my case for gaining about 20 pounds, snooping through my internet bookmarks about jobs, criticizing me for wanting to sleep in past 8 o'clock, wanting to troll for a random guy to screw. The list goes on. I didn't speak to her for about a month until after she left and we used to speak 1-2x a week. When I did pick up the phone, I laid everything out about her not being a supportive person, i.e., she used to play devil's advocate by defending the other person whenever I would rant about something instead of just being on my side. I'd been going to school full time and working full time for several years, so wanting to sleep in should have been understandable. And finally the incident with my husband. I told her I didn't expect her to remember it as it had happened before her accident. She was in a bad car accident and was on life support and had missing memories. But the fact that it happened wasn't acceptable and my husband made it clear he didn't want her around, especially with how the visit had gone. To be honest, I didn't clearly say I don't want you in my life anymore. Rather, I just no longer answered her phone calls or emails after that conversation and denied her friend request on FB and blocked her 2 years after the conversation. When she wanted to be, she could be a good friend, but the crappy friend side of her came out so much more. I'm better off and have several closer friends now without all the drama. TL. DR. Had a frenemy, took too long to get them out of my life. Now they are gone and I'm good. She told me she was a werewolf, no joke. Some people get way too caught up in Tumblr's hatred of what is normal and try to be more interesting. She got all into Othican, other genders, strange behavior, and she wasn't the same person anymore. Hey, we just kind of grew into very different people. We've known each other for more than 25 years, but I moved away almost 15 years ago. We kept in touch by phone for a long time. Then it was only me calling her on holidays or her birthday. Then, social media appeared. We both only post sporadically, but she's very different as a person than I am. Contact is now only happy birthdays exchanged on Facebook. It makes me a little sad, but I don't think we'd get along anymore, so I'm content to let our friendship putter out like this. I got my best friend in college a job where I worked. Turned out he was lazy as frick. Got caught sleeping several times, would show up late and leave early but falsify his timesheet so he still got paid, would break things and never tell anyone so he didn't get in trouble, and on and on. Meanwhile, I was busting my butt to make the business a success. Last I saw him, he was leaving the job but had a brand new car. He said, I had to buy it before I quit so I could put the income down on the credit application, which is fraud, of course. After you lose all respect for someone, it's tough to be their friend. Every single time we used go out in a group, she'd go out of her way to spoil everyone else's night. Every single time. The night I stopped talking to her, she was trying to start an argument with me the entire evening. She then kicked me out her house at 5 AM and I came home to nasty messages on Facebook from her. I told her I was done with her crap and told her not to contact me again. Oh, also she had a creepy butt boyfriend who would get drunk and come on to me when she wasn't around. She didn't reach out to me when my house caught on fire and my family was displaced. I messaged all of my friends in one long text while the whole thing was happening, and she never responded. I lived in a small New England town, so word spread pretty fast about my house, because things like that never happened. When people asked her about what happened, she brushed it off and said it was no big deal, just a small brush fire and everything was fine. Well, yeah, no lives were lost, but we were homeless in a matter of minutes. So I was really hurt by that, because it seemed like a very despicable thing for someone to do, especially someone I had thought so highly of before and was best friends with for so many years. I moved to Texas recently, and she now goes to school here. She texted me asking if we could meet up. I said I wasn't interested. I don't regret anything. I don't need toxic people in my life like that, especially ones who aren't there for you in the most extreme circumstances. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.